Hey everyone, welcome. This is my first reaction video. Um, Basically, I started doing this because I always watch scary things like continuously, and when I say scary things, like horror, thriller type stuff with murderers and all that on YouTube. And I thought, why not give it a try? Reacting to things, putting it out there because I find these things interesting and I would love to share it with you guys. Um, I'm just gonna start off with a nice quick video because my power's actually gonna be going out soon. ESCOM issues in South Africa. So the first video I'm gonna react to is three scary true stories that happened while watching Mr. Nightmare. Um, so let's get right into the video. Dum 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 dum. Is it not recording my desktop? My desktop audio doesn't seem to be working. Properties. Yeah.
You can listen to all of these
There we
stories,
go.
plus
Sorry
a few
about that.
exclusive ones on
Here we
Spotify,
go.
Apple
Let's get
Music,
into this
and
video.
Amazon Music by clicking the link in the description.
The video I've been watching Mr. Nightmare for years now. Haven't watched this one, so let's see what
I
it's
was
about,
15 years old. I would sometimes sleep over my friend JT's house. He had this cool loft bedroom that was its own floor and was attached to the attic through another half flight of stairs. When we were even younger, we'd use
Just some content. If you guys don't know, I mean, I think Mr. Nightmare is one of like the most popular um horror, true story, horror type readers. Most of his stuff gets sent in by his viewers. So yeah, I'm guessing because they're watching Mr. Nightmare, this is gonna be all sent from his viewers, and then they send him pictures and stuff like that. I'm not sure if this is pictures, but yeah, normally it seems to be legit. So let's see, eh?
used to have big hide and seek games in his house with our other friends and his brother. JT grew up in this big house with just his mom and his brother. His dad has always been rich, and after his parents divorced, he still paid for the house for the three of them to live in. His mom was the kind of 40-something-year-old woman to go into town every night dressed in overly tight white pants and
Cougar?
such. When I was
Anybody?
14, 15, I didn't
Or is
really
it just me?
realize what she was going out and doing all the time, but it meant he usually had the house to himself weekend nights. This was one of those nights. We smoked a bit of weed and played
Cougar.
hours worth of Super Smash Bros. Then when it got later, we decided to watch some Mr. Nightmare videos ironically. We were on our third video, Pizza Delivery Horror Stories. This, funny enough, made us want to order a pizza, so we called one of the only pizza places around us open past 10 and ordered a pie. As we finished the current video we were on, we started watching a Craigslist horror story video. And just as we were genuinely getting spooked by one of the stories, there was a crash sound from up in the attic. The sound of
Oh
a
my
box
gosh.
falling over
What?
and its contents spilling out. It sounded like plastic toys. JT and I looked at each other and freaked out. We went to pause the video, and JT screamed his older brother's name, who wasn't supposed to be home. It was our first instinct to assume that it was his brother trying to scare us, but that would mean he had been hiding in the attic for hours, which seemed unlikely. Given we were already watching scary videos, this only made the situation even more unsettling. JT went up the 5 carpeted stairs towards the little attic door and opened it. He flicked on the attic light and went inside as I stood behind watching. He immediately said he saw what it was. It was a box full of Hot Wheels cars that fell and spilled out a bunch of the cars. He left it as it was and said he'd clean it tomorrow. He left the attic
Sorry
and
about
shut the
that.
closet door, and right around that time the doorbell rang.
I'll rewind a little
He
bit.
left it as it was and said he'd clean it tomorrow. He left the attic and shut the closet door, and right around that time the doorbell rang, causing us both to jump again. I guess we were both just really tense given the vibe of everything in the past half hour. We went downstairs to pay for the pizza and grab plates to eat and stuff. We started eating in the kitchen and planned to bring the rest of the pizza back up to his room. While we were downstairs though, we actually heard a sound from upstairs, like in the attic. The kitchen was below JT's room, and the living room was below the attic, so the living room had a higher ceiling. We walked into the living room to listen, and sure enough, we heard a faint bump that was just loud enough to hear. We again looked at each other with wide eyes. JT said there might be an animal in the attic because he'd seen YouTube videos where raccoons somehow crawl through a hole in the roof. He somehow convinced me to go check it out. I'm not sure why we were making a joke of this. I think because neither of us wanted to admit how freaked out we were. We went back to his room together, and he gave me this huge flashlight. I opened the attic door, and he was right behind me at the doorway. I turned on this huge flashlight that doubled as a radio and stepped inside. I looked at the spilled over pile of Hot Wheels. Then I looked around this city of piles of boxes. Why
What
am I
is
doing
it? I'm
this?
getting nervous. Oh, oh my gosh. What could it be? I'm going to say
I
person.
said back to JT, and he laughed and said, just keep.
Or
Maybe it was a demon. Demon in the rough.
Keep looking. I stepped a little deeper into the attic to look behind this tall pile of boxes. And suddenly, I felt two hands on my back push me. I stumbled forward and almost fell, and I heard the laugh of JT behind me. I told him he was a dick. But then, I guess in response to my sudden and loud stumble forward, something moved from beyond this other pile of boxes.
Ah.
I stepped up maybe 2 more feet and peered behind the boxes with the flashlight, and I was petrified. There was a guy hunched over behind the pile of boxes.
No
and he looked right
ways.
back at me. I ran back out of the attic while pushing JT out, screaming, "Go, run!" I shut the door behind us and screamed that there's someone in there. He followed me outside to the neighbor's house, who apparently wasn't home. We waited on the neighbor's stoop as we called 911. Then we called JT's mom, who seemed kind of drunk, and rushed home from her date or whatever she was doing. The police searched the house to make sure it was clear. The back door was left wide open, indicating the man escaped through there and likely climbed one of the fences to a neighboring yard. The man, from what I briefly saw, looked like a young guy, maybe in his early 30s. He had short black hair and facial hair. I was just glad this wasn't my house, because I wouldn't be comfortable sleeping there for a long time. I know JT was scared to sleep in his room for a long time after that.
That is messed up. I'm sorry. But you find someone inside your house. Jeez, like it. That must be the scariest thing ever. Don't know about you guys, but you in South Africa, that sounds like normal. No, I'm joking. It's not. It's not. We don't do shit like that. We, we aware, but no one breaks in, hopefully. Even though it has happened to a few people that I know in the middle of the night, people climbing through windows and stuff, stealing stuff. Not fun. Anyways, let's move on. First story.
I was on a road trip to Las Vegas one night to meet my friends for a music festival. I was on Interstate 15, which is mostly just desert the whole way to Vegas. I chose to do the drive at night to avoid traffic.
Never
Left my
been
house
to
around
Vegas.
8 p.m.
Would love
My
to go.
GPS said I'd get to my friend's Airbnb around midnight. On long drives, I usually listen to podcasts and such because I start getting tired of music after a few hours. I started listening to Mr. Nightmare stories to pass the time, as they made the time seem to go quicker.
True,
Given
it
that I
does.
was having a road trip, I listened to the road
What the hell
trip
is that?
stories.
Did you see that?
About 3 hours into the drive, I had to stop.
Let me rewind.
As they made the time seem to go quicker.
UFO. Confirmed. UFO. Done deal. UFO has been confirmed, everybody. Let's move on.
Given that I was
They're
having a
real.
road trip, I listened to the road trip themed stories. About 3 hours into the drive, I had to stop for gas, so I added a detour to the route on my GPS, and it showed me where to get off for the closest gas station. It was a few miles away. I got off the next exit ramp into some
If I'm
sketchy
yawning, I'm
looking
so
area.
sorry. So late. Now 10 to 2. Power goes off in 10 minutes. So better hurry up.
There were
Gotta
a few
stop
houses
pausing now.
and just desert. It was such an odd place for a few houses to be. I pulled up to this generic gas station. The only light
gas
source to be
stations.
seen for pretty much miles. There were only 4 pumps total at this little station. I pulled up next to the one closest to the door to the inside. I went inside to pay the worker for the gas and buy a couple snacks. Not to use a derogatory term, but the guy working there seemed like kind of a hick. He had an unkempt, stale-looking beard,
the
a
hell is
dirty
a
red
hick?
trucker hat on, and the way he spoke was
If
kind of
anybody
creepy.
knows, let me know.
But out here in
Most
the middle of
probably me,
nowhere,
yeah.
I didn't
I'm
know
a
what
hick.
else I really expected.
Look at me.
He tried making conversation with me, asking where I was from. That struck me as him realizing I'm not from around here. I told him I was from Cali. I asked him if he gets a lot of customers here. Kind of a weird question on my part looking back, but whatever. He said not really, not my kind at least. Then he gave me a gross smile. I had no idea what that meant, but it sounded off-putting and like a creepy flirt. The man then looked out the window toward my car and said,
This a woman?
"Your
It must
friend?"
be a woman, eh?
I looked
Sorry,
outside
I wasn't
and got
paying
a glimpse
attention
of
there.
someone walking quickly into the darkness. It looked like they were just by my car. I said, "No, I don't know them," and asked the cashier what that guy just did. He shrugged his shoulders and said he didn't see. Being admittedly an attractive girl in her 20s, I deal with
Okay, there we
creepy
go.
stuff all the time, so I almost wanted to ask the cashier if he could accompany me outside to make me feel better. But honestly, I was creeped out by the cashier as well. I went outside to the pump to start filling up the tank of my car. I looked around the empty gas station lot. There was just a humming from one of the lights of the canopy above me and the sound of the cold night breeze. There were no cars or lights as far as the eye could see. Where did that guy go? And what was he doing? I looked at the window of the gas station shop and saw the cashier standing there looking directly at me. I wondered if he was doing it to make sure I was okay after that sketchy person
Oh,
ran off
normally
with the
that's what they're
charges.
doing, just saying.
But that thought was negated when he started waving at me slowly. It was disgustingly creepy, and I wanted to get out of there. I paid for $40 worth of gas. When I was around the 30
This
mark, I heard
Probably
something in the small
waving to
building,
tell her to
like a
come
voice.
inside. Watch out.
I looked over to the window, expecting it to be the cashier who made the noise. But he was still inside, just standing at the window looking at me. Then I noticed where the sound came from. There was a man peering his head around the right side wall of the small gas station store. He was waving his hands at me, motioning for me to come over. And I'm
I
pretty
told
sure
you.
I saw a creepy smile on his face too.
What?
I started waving and calling for the cashier in the store. He didn't move though. He just stood there, motionless, looking at me as I called for him and waved my arms. I looked back at the creepy guy who was peering his head around the corner, and he was still there, but now he wasn't hiding behind the wall anymore. He was standing fully exposed until he noticed me notice him, then started walking towards me. I removed the nozzle from my gas tank and left it dangling. I called at the cashier for help one more time. He still just stood there, motionless, looking at me. I felt my heart in my throat. This was a textbook scene directly from a Mr. Nightmare story. I got in my car and sped out of there, back on the basically deserted road, and eventually back onto the interstate.
How far away was this guy that he didn't get to in time before she had time
Needless to
to
say, I stopped
take the
listening to
pump?
Mr. Nightmare for the rest of that road trip.
I don't know.
I got safely to the Airbnb about
Maybe
an
it's
hour
just
after that
being
ordeal.
paranoid.
I still have no idea what to make of it.
Well, from the sounds of it, is you looked at a guy, thought he was creepy, and just didn't want his help. So he was like, okay, well, screw you
I
then.
rent a house in Gulfport, Mississippi. It's a small house, but perfect for one person. I live alone with my dog Gringo. The backyard is big for him to run around in, and the area is pretty nice, right by the beach too. This happened on a summer night, I think a Thursday. I had just finished preparing my lunch for tomorrow
Story number 3.
and finished cleaning up the kitchen. Before going to sleep, I laid in my bed and ironically was actually watching Mr. Nightmare videos. I always like to think
Let's do it.
these videos would help me know what to do in a worst case scenario situation like a home invasion or anything of the sorts. I'm sure a lot of
Call the
people feel
cops?
that way. But honestly, none of us ever expect something like that to happen to us. Sure, it happens to other people, but never you, right? Well, it must have been like 11:30 at night.
But it's
I
time
was
for
literally watching
everything.
the video when the doorbell rang.
Hope I'm
Gringo
not
started
like
barking.
too loud here. But anyways,
Hearing the doorbell any time past 10 o'clock honestly is bone-chilling. It raises immediate red flags and questions, like who is it and what could they want at this hour? I didn't leave my bed. I was not going to leave my bedroom to check who it could be. I was
really?
downright horrified just from the sound of the doorbell. Gringo is a pretty big dog and you can hear it in his bark, so I hoped the sound of his barks would deter anyone with bad intentions. But the doorbell rang again, and the dread of wondering who was out there and why were they at my doorstep became even worse. The doorbell was followed by loud knocking. I still didn't leave my bed. I wasn't going to go out there. When it finally seemed to stop, I felt a little relieved. Since the house is only one floor, my bedroom was ground level. My
The guy
window kind
was
of looks out to the
dying,
street in front of the house. So I
leaning.
looked out the window just to see if anyone would be walking down the street. I stood there watching for maybe 30 seconds before I heard footsteps outside near the window. I hurried back into the bed to hide. Gringo was growling and looking out the window. I told him to be quiet. Suddenly, a voice broke the silence and said, "I see you. Open the window." The voice was right outside the window.
Why in America don't they have blinds and curtains?
I
Jeez,
still
like,
did
look
not
there.
look. The guy
Look at that.
outside my window said, "Hey,
Curtains.
doggy."
Hello, no one can see
Gringo was
inside
going
now.
crazy. I couldn't
You guys are
realistically keep
idiots.
pretending to be asleep.
Come on,
I
man.
turned over to look at the window. I was looking
Shit.
at a creepy man with his eyes open super wide, looking back at me.
I'm not gonna lie,
Only
I
thing
shut myself
separating us
there.
being the bug screen of the window. I asked, "What do you want?" And he repeated himself and said, "Can you let me in? It's cold out here." But it was literally a midsummer night in Mississippi. I said, "Leave before I call the police." This was when he tried lifting the screen himself, and when he realized he couldn't, he started punching at it to break a hole in it. I quickly slid the window shut and locked it. I was shocked Gringo's loud barks weren't scaring this guy off. I asked the 911 operator to please send police to my house. And of course, like in so many stories I've heard before, the police showed up too late because the man was gone. He was probably on some kind of drugs. I have no idea what kind, but I could just hear it in his voice. And that comment that it was cold outside was also a dead giveaway.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
think
like,
there was really any other
Okay.
appropriate way to handle this other than locking the window right away and calling 911.
But again, why is your window not locked in the first place? Before you go to bed, everyone out there, you Americans, you, every single person, curtains, and everything gets locked before you go to bed. Oh my gosh. People that live in flippin', what you call it, in these insanely safe places, just, oh my god, freaks me out. Anyways, if I was there, because I'm in South Africa, we know, keep everything locked, security, everything. And yeah, that was my first reaction. Last one freaked me out a little bit when they showed that person at the window. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed it. Mr. Nightmare's details are obviously going to be down below. If you haven't seen it, I'm sure you have. But if you haven't, go and subscribe to him. And yeah, don't subscribe to me. Just hope you enjoyed it. Love you guys. Cheers. Peace. Don't know if I'm going to end my streams like that. Just goodbye. See you later, alligators. In a wild crocodile. Okay, I'm done. Let me try out my creepy doll voice.
Hello? Do I have a creepy doll voice? I'm sorry. Hello. Again, I'm done.
Cheers, everybody. Bye.